Next, you've heard the story of the Bedford boys, those 19 young men who died fighting for our freedom in World War II on a beach very far from here.
Yeah, but there are 5 other brave young men from that era that many in Bedford claim as their own. They did not die on a beach, though. Their fates were sealed on a mountain right here in our area. Angela Hatcher joins us with the story of the Sharp Top tragedy.
Len, we return to the crash scene, and although most of the B-25 Mitchell bomber is still there, there are no real answers about what led to the demise of 5 airmen on that mountain 70 years ago this Saturday. A landmark of the grandest scale, many a journey to Sharp Top ends with travelers lost in the mountain's majestic beauty. Unfortunately, that's not how this story begins or ends.
They had absolutely no idea where they were or what they were into.
On a night navigation mission, a B-25, similar to this one, takes off from Columbia Army Air Base, South Carolina, with 5 airmen on board. A 21-year-old from Oklahoma, with just 112 flight hours under his belt, pilots the mission. It's about 9:30, and the unfamiliar Blue Ridge is camouflaged by a midnight-colored sky.
1943, second day of February.
Bobby Key, 13 at the time, was out with his brothers.
We just stopped, and that thing come right on over, and it hit that mountain. A big ball of fire run up in the sky, and then we got a boom. We blurred out. We believe the Germans and shot down one of our planes.
It wasn't the enemy.
The plane has on it number 129828.
Was the message relayed from a Bedford police captain in a telephone call with an Army major back at the air base. That tail number confirms the plane that hit Sharp Top is the B-25 last reported over Raleigh about a half hour before people in Bedford heard the loud engines overhead.
The B-25 is a huge plane.
Jay Maxfield, who isn't old enough to have heard the thunderous noise with his own ears or to have seen the mountain in flames with his own eyes, has only heard the tales passed down from the mountain to the younger generations. Grainy black and whites tell Maxfield more than the colorful language of his elders.
If you look at the pictures of the plane crash, the pictures that were taken the day after, you'll see the elevators on the back of the plane are locked up. That means that there was an instant when the pilot knew that he was in trouble and he tried to raise it, and you just couldn't bring it up that fast.
Nor could you bring the pieces down easily. The sun has set on this slope more than 25,000 times since that night back in 1943. The B-25 is still here. Its pieces as jagged as the peak of the mountain they rest on.
One of the engines is at the top. One of the engines marks the bottom of the debris field.
Too heavy for scavengers to leave with. Curiosity seekers leave their marks instead in what's left of Army green paint.
Somebody's crawled inside and scratched it all to pieces.
That same paint once made finding the wreckage difficult. A shot in the dark for search parties that night. Men from town wouldn't reach the site until after midnight on foot.
They told about that terrible scene that they come upon.
The wreckage presented a scene of horror not often witnessed, according to the February 4th, 1943 edition of the Bedford Bulletin. Startling news for Key's mother, who had a son serving in the war. She felt a sorrow for 5 other mothers in hometowns far from Bedford.
And she used to tell them their little boys have lost their life right there on that mountain.
Somebody has lost their boys.
At the Bedford Museum, Jennifer Thompson is sometimes asked to tell Bedford's war story, a story that includes a piece of a wing from the B-25, whose final resting place is 2,000 feet above the town, and the men who died right there beside it.
They took care of them like they were their own boys.
That meant decades later, in 2001, the placement of their names in bronze at this crash site memorial. Second Lieutenant George R. Beninga, Bombardier, age 23, Marietta, Minnesota. Corporal Peter J. Biskin, Engineer, age 29, Chicago, Illinois. Second Lieutenant Hillary S. Blackwell, Navigator, age 22, Santa Monica, California. Second Lieutenant William C. McClure, co-pilot, age 22, Indianapolis, Indiana. Second Lieutenant Paul M. Pitts, pilot, age 21, Poteau, Oklahoma.
These young men died up here. The way I look at it, their DNA is still in this earth.
The Army classified the cause of the crash as unknown. In witness statements, people who were outside that night said the engine sounded as if they were running perfectly, despite the tales told through the years that it was rainy and foggy that night, like it was the day we hiked the mountain. The official aircraft accident report lists the weather that night as CAVU, or Ceiling and Visibility Unlimited. In 2001, the Virginia General Assembly declared February 2nd of each year Forgotten Airmen Day, so that these 5 airmen will never be forgotten. Len, Noreen.
Very interesting look back in history there.
And it's great that we certainly have shown them the respect that they deserve.
70 years later.